this episode.
Your energy projectiles will be able to bounce back from the edges of the grid, allows projectiles to bounce more than once. It will turn into a score drop. What's happening? I'm back with a few new skills. Let's have a look. We're gonna start with the ricochet. So now if you have this passive skill selected, your energy projectiles will be able to bounce back from the edges of the grid. And the higher level you have, the bigger the distance they're gonna have. And it's multiplicative. So if you had like 2 squares left to travel, on the level 1 it's gonna multiply it by 2, so it's gonna go even further back. And it works together with another passive called multicachet, which allows projectiles to bounce more than once. So yeah, they sort of work together, and after playing around with it a little bit, I think maybe I will merge them into a single skill, because it's not very fun to spend your skill points into like essentially the same thing, but you have to spend it twice. Alright, and the next one is alchemy, which is also a passive skill, and if you have it, there is a chance that rock particles will turn into a score drop. So you see a bunch of particles now, and not all of them, but a lot of them turn into score. Here we're using debug mode, and I set like a very high score for myself. I never was able to reach level 17, I think, but this is just to demonstrate how it could be on a higher level. And yeah, the higher the level of alchemy you have, the bigger is the chance of particle turning into score. Okay, we're not gonna have a look at the full div today, just gonna show a few things. So this is how we manage skills definitions. I call them items for some reason, don't remember why, but basically it's a biggest configuration, and for each type of a skill we define some properties, right? Selectable is our sort of predicate function, where we describe, do we want this item already to appear in our item selection menu when we reach a level up, right? And we have a few sort of helpers here. Each item also defines a name description, level description, all the things that you're gonna see in a box in the UI. And also it defines how much energy it's gonna cost. It's a function because it might change based on the current level of an item. We introduced ricochet, right? So it has quite a few conditions to appear. So you should already have a energy blast available. You should be at least at the level 5 in the game. And you cannot increase the level of ricochet item more than 5. Obviously, it's not balanced, it's just arbitrary numbers for now. Multicachet is another upgrade for ricochet, and it defines how many times energy projectile can bounce off the edges of the grid. Also has some limitations when you can choose it. And alchemy, basically the higher level you have, the higher is the chance. That's it. Now we can have a look how it actually works. Let's start with item stomp, which is our energy projectiles thingy. We now trying to check, okay, what sort of items creature has that shoots projectiles. And we are checking if item can be actually used based on the energy that creature has. Creature is a player, but theoretically we can have more creatures in the game at some point, and they might also use energy blast skill, right? So this is why it says creature. And then we just going through all directions and trying to spawn projectiles. And based on the item's availability, we set some properties of a projectile, how many times it can bounce, and also how far should it go after bouncing from the edge. For the alchemy, the way it works, if you go into particle, this is our update function for each particle. When the rock is destroyed, we see particles flying around, and basically when animation or a movement here is finished for a particular particle, now we're gonna call this handle function. I'm not doing any sort of pops up events dispatching thing. I'm just calling things directly. Now there's no magic. We just calling use item alchemy. We are saying that, hey, it's being used by a player, and it has a bunch of checks. Does player has this item? Then we sort of roll the dice based on the current level of alchemy item. Chance gonna be different, right? So we using randomizer, and in case you're lucky, we will proceed. And the other check is square on the grid where particle lands needs to be empty. Like if you have rock at this location, or player is already there, or there is no ground at this location, we're just gonna skip it. If you passed all of those, we create new score, start animation for it, and add it to the grid. And that's it. And I think the last thing we can have a look at is our item selector component. We introduced it in the last video, I think. So we still create a pool of items. Now we have more of them. And then on a state change, which is when you reach a level up, what we do, we have this little buffer where we would accumulate items that can be selected at this time, right? So we go through all of our items in the pool. We execute the selectable function that we saw previously. And if you pass this function, it means this item can indeed be leveled up or picked at this level. We add it to the buffer, and then we just randomly pick 3 items and we put them into our skill selector UI, right? Buffer is a little wrapper around the slice so that we don't allocate new array every time you reach a level up, and we render item selector, and right, because we need to do this iteration through all the items. So you would usually just filter an array, but yeah, we're trying to avoid allocations. All right, I think it's enough for an episode, and feel free to leave weirdest ideas for new skills in the comments. I see you in the next one.